You're listening to the Sisters in Loss podcast, a faith-based grief and loss podcast for Black women, where you will hear stories of miscarriage, infant loss, stillbirth, and infertility to learn there is a testimony in tragedy. You will learn how to heal, gain clarity, find hope and peace, and turn your pain into your purpose after loss. I'm your host, Erica M. McAfee. Welcome to episode 146 of the Sisters in Loss podcast. In today's episode, we have Leone Madzinga. She is the founding director of Precious Pearls Trust, founder of Loss, Hope, and Love. And she talks about her journey to motherhood by having an early miscarriage and then losing her son at 16 weeks due to an incompetent cervix. She went on then to have a placenta abruption with another son at 26 weeks. And then she shares in this episode that the hardest thing going through both experiences was hearing the baby's heartbeat and then a few hours later losing her baby. She is going to talk about how she had to get a cervical stitch, and she hopes that helps her be able to carry a baby full term. So here is Leone Madzinga as she shares her story and her journey. Well, thank you so much, Leone, for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. Hi, Erica.
Hi, calling all the way from Zimbabwe, right?
That's right.
Yes.
A nice summer day in Zimbabwe.
Nice. So I'd like for you to just begin by sharing a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay. So as you said, my name is Leone. I am married to a wonderful man. I'm also the founding director of a non-profit organization that focuses on giving girls tools to help them reduce their potential. So we give them information on menstrual health management, gender-based violence, amongst other things. I'm also a budding author, and I just take each day as it comes.
Awesome. So take us back on your journey to motherhood and share with us your lost story.
All right. So when I got married, we decided with my husband that we were not going to start trying for children at that point. So we waited for a while. And I think it was in our second year, towards the end of the second year, we started trying for a child. Unfortunately, that did not happen within the year. It was a hope that I would fall pregnant within a year. We then went for tests, and those tests were clear. And then in the third year, we then realized that we're actually expecting a child. And I found out 5 months, I beg your pardon, into the pregnancy. Of course, there was a lot of excitement around that. And the pregnancy started progressing really well. And then at about 16 and a half weeks, I started having abdominal pains, excruciating abdominal pains. We went to the obstetrician. And when we got there, the initial reaction was like, no, probably your ligaments are just stretching. As the pain. But the pain was so intense and it would come in waves. And it so happened that I went through such an episode whilst I was actually with the doctor. He then suggested we go for a scan. So when we got to the service provider who was doing the scan, as he was scanning and he was moving his instrument on my stomach, he started asking a lot of questions. And the moment he started doing that, I then knew something was wrong. And he was asking how far along was I, what else had I been taught, and any other scans been done. We immediately went back to the doctor and he said, unfortunately, my cervix was not open and the baby was ready to come out at 16 and a half weeks, going on to 17. He suggested that we could try putting in a cervical stitch, but at this stage, it was a bit late because he could easily pop the amniotic sac. He gave us 24 hours to think about it, but within 3 hours, I actually went into labor. So we ended up at an emergency room, and within 30 minutes afterwards, I actually delivered the baby. This happened because they gave me some medication to deal with any infections that would come as a result of the loss. And as I was throwing up, then the baby also came out. They asked me if I wanted to see. My initial reaction was no, I don't want to see the baby. It was only, I think, after about 30 minutes. I said, okay, show me, what came out of me at that stage. So I did. I then went into another hospital, another private hospital. We were waiting to do the process of DNC. It also happened that evening. But then between me being transferred from hospital to the other hospital and then going in for DNC, I lost a lot of blood. And I think on that journey, the whole journey, I found that aspect extremely painful and traumatic. I was numb. I couldn't feel anything. I wasn't even thinking. I was just going through the motions as these things were happening. A day later, I was discharged and I went home. On the third day, probably on the second week, going to the third, my body was ready to breastfeed. So you can imagine I've got swollen breasts. They're ready to breastfeed. And at some point, milk was already dripping. So I had to find a natural remedy to dry out the milk. I think within 2 days, I was okay. At that point, it did not register really what had happened. And I remember just wondering what happened, and I'll play back, have flashbacks and figure out what exactly happened. What I then did was I drowned myself with so much work, and my job at that time was very demanding and allowed me to travel a lot. So I made sure I had a lot of work to do, and I was always busy with the hope that I wouldn't have time to think. That strategy only worked during the day, but at night, I would have a lot of emotional breakdowns. And at some point, my husband actually thought I needed to resign and leave my job. But I still stuck it through. A few weeks later, I then found out that I was pregnant and expecting. And this time, I was so hands-on on the pregnancy. The moment I found out, I then went in at about 12 weeks, went to 13. I then went in for a cervical stitch. Was initially they said that I'd lost the baby as a result of an incompetent cervix. So I went in for a cervical stitch, and that went well. We went into the fourth month, the fifth month. I was in and out of hospital with that pregnancy, primarily because whenever my blood pressure went high, my obstetrician made sure that I was admitted because he labeled my pregnancy high risk. Hence, he needed me to be always under the radar, see what's going on, what he needs to do to intervene to avoid another loss. And honestly, despite me losing that baby, my obstetrician did all he could to make sure that we kept the baby. And he's one professional to this day. I always say, I think when I see him, you did all you could for me, but unfortunately it was not meant to be. So as I was going through that pregnancy, the second pregnancy, once again, at about 26 weeks, I then started having abdominal pains. And to me, abdominal pains mean a red flag. I went to see the doctor and he says, yes, you're actually in labor. We'll need to give you some shots for the baby's lung and let's see what happens. Before I went in for an admission, I went in for another scan to see the baby and to hear the baby's heartbeat, to see the intricate detail of the baby and everything was fine. Unfortunately, at that time, my placenta was not showing signs of abrupting. Within a day, then I started having the pains were increasing, and eventually they removed the cervical stitch. And about 2 hours later, I then delivered the baby. They induced me, then I delivered the baby. Once again, they asked me if I wanted to see my son. And I said, oh, yes, I really do, because I think from the first experience, I learned that closure was important. So I managed to see my son. And I remember with my husband, we were actually talking, looking at his features. Because now he was pretty much, you could tell that this is a baby, unlike the first episode. Afterwards, I think the whole process went well. I delivered and I was numb. Emotionally, I became really numb, where when people would talk to me or just look at you and just be expressionless. I couldn't reply some WhatsApp messages or some calls. I'll just look at my phone and look aside. I couldn't relate with a lot of people on various levels. I couldn't reply emails. I just shut down and went into my own world. Fortunately, friends of ours who are based in Asia, they invited me for a holiday just to recuperate. And I think in my journey, that was one of the healing things that really helped me just to spend time on me and in a different setting and just to give yourself a lot of attention and self-love. Um, and as I was going through both losses, I then also realized that, when you lose a baby in a hospital, or the experiences that I had, people actually don't know what to do with you. Primarily because there's so much expectation, there's so much joy and celebration when someone's pregnant. The moment a baby is lost, whether miscarriage, stillborn, or baby loss, they actually don't know what to do with you because they're not expecting it for one reason or the other. Now, from that, you realize that, the people around you, your immediate and even your extended circle, they're quick to say, you've lost a baby, it's okay, get over it and try again. Not realizing that life has changed. My outlook as life has changed. My outlook to a lot of things has changed. And it's not just a matter of trying and falling pregnant and saying, I can keep doing this. Because for me, especially in my setup culturally, the moment you get you get married, the next thing they expect is a baby. So even if they bump into any family member and they know that Leone is married, the next question they'll ask is, so how many kids does she have? So you've got all these pressures around you, not necessarily said to you directly, unless the proximity of the relationship is close, but there are always these influences that can be drawn from conversation. And from then on, I then decided to talk to other women who have been through this and, reach out to them using my own experiences. And I actually realized that the women that I've been in touch with, who I've reached out to, they've also had miscarriages or stillborn. To the extent that now the pressure they felt pregnant pretty fast. When the baby came, they still could not relate to their baby in some cases. They still could not nurture the baby because they were still grieving their previous loss. But attention is not focused on that. Attention is you are married, have a baby, you want to see a baby in the home or coming from this union, and you got to do it. So my experience in my journey to motherhood has been bumpy, but I've also learned that there's beauty in pain. It's not an easy space to be in. It's not easy to accept. But at some point, I reached that space where I said, you know what? There's actually beauty in pain. I don't understand why this happened. I probably will not understand because I look back and I say, what did I do that I was not supposed to do? Or what was not done? Or what did I allow to affect me? And you ask yourself all these questions. But then I realized I'm not going to get answers to those questions. And instead, what can I bring out of this that is worth the pain that I've been through?
I love what you just said, that there is some beauty in this. So take us on the next steps of your journey, up until now, like how have you begun to heal and grieve?
Okay, what I did, the first thing was I had friends that used to pray for me when I was expecting. And I'll still keep talking to them. They'll still pray for me. I got to a point where I couldn't even pray. So I would always ask them to pray for me. I would listen to a lot of gospel music, but I struggled to pray. And then secondly, I would read a lot of articles online, join a lot of groups and various social media platforms or communities just to see what other women are going through and how they've managed to overcome. And then I also joined a support group that also helped me, where you meet women from all walks of life explaining to you what they've been through and how they've overcome. And you actually look at it and say, you know what, I can do this, I can overcome this. I also gone for counseling, but the thing with counseling is it's not a one size fits all. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Eventually, I think after about 3 or 4 counselors, I settled for the fifth one, an amazing couple, and they talked me through it, and also my husband talked us through it, and we're able to have a better outlook of things. But I also disengaged from the church setup, because where I come from, it's if anything goes wrong, your first point of call is the church. Because the pressure then was, you lost a baby, it's fine. You can move on and try for another baby. So what I then did to cope was whenever I'm going to church, I would arrive after the service has started, so I'm not interacting with anybody, and I'll leave before the service is ended, a few minutes before it ends. That way, there's no interaction or talk with the people around me. And there's no pressure to attend this program or to go to this place for counseling or to go and see so-and-so who does this and can help. Because I think at that point, it's not as if in your mind you don't know what to do or you don't know how or you don't know what you're feeling. But it's just to try to balance out your mind, your body, and your heart to come together in sync and to say, okay, this happened. How are we going to heal? So for me, it was trying to get my mind. My mind has already accepted and conceived what happened. But how do we then balance this out with my body and my heart to say, okay, this is the help that would work? Of course, I remember I went for a certain counseling session and there was a lot of, I felt very, due to lack of a better word, it was a bit judgmental, primarily because, they're asking you, what did you do wrong or what did you not do as an expecting mom? And even when I look back, I did all I could. And it's not about the blame game. At that point, you just want to heal. And, the pain does not go away. In that, I still have moments where I think about it. I'm like, oh, okay, that happened. But I've also directed that pain now to helping other women who have also experienced what I went through. I've also redirected that pain to help other young mothers by setting up baby hampers for them, for expecting mothers who can't afford to do that. So I've redirected the pain to say, okay, this is what happened, and I can do this. But also in the same token, up to now, there are moments where I can't attend certain functions. I can't attend baby welcomes or a baby shower or a diaper party. Not to say I've got anything against the expecting mother or the baby, but it just means that on that particular day or that particular week, I'm not in a space to be in a crowd like that. So there are certain crowds up to now I still can't attend because emotionally I'll be processing something. And you don't want to have outbursts in a social setting and no one knows what's going on or how to handle you. And chance of it being misconceived are really high. I've also been reading a lot. I think reading a lot has really helped me. And even just after the loss, my obstetrician, had a long chat with me. And, he just said to me, I allow you as Leone to go through the whole cycle of grief. Because culturally, we believe it's a baby that no one is seeing except you, the mother you felt, and the father. So we don't think it's much of a big deal. But actually, it is. You've lost a life that was now moving in you, and you could feel the kicks and so on. So I think that initial conversation I had with him was my greatest impact, but I knew I needed to grieve and to go through every single stage. Over and above that, I think me just being me, rediscovering what you like, what maybe you stopped doing. Because when I was pregnant, I stopped a lot of things because it was a high-risk pregnancy. I was already on bed rest from about 3 months. I stopped, signing up for a lot of opportunities or going up after certain things I wanted. So now, in my healing process, rediscovering me, what I like doing, what I don't like doing, working with expecting mothers who can't afford certain things, trying to rally support around them, that has also helped me.
I love that you have turned your pain into a purpose and now you are helping other mothers. Today's podcast episode is brought to you and partnered with a new podcast that's launching during Black Maternal Health Week called Natal. Natal is a docuseries about what it means to be a Black person having a baby in the United States today. The statistics are staggering. According to the CDC, Black parents are 243% more likely to die from pregnancy or childbirth-related issues than white women. Black parents are also more likely to face complications directly associated with pregnancy and/or childbirth, such as preeclampsia, fibroids, and physical weathering. And while there's less clinical research about trans and non-binary parents, individual anecdotes detail the dangers faced due to the general lack of preparedness and training for non-cis births. Launching on April 15th, 2020, during Black Maternal Health Week, Natal Season 1 will debut on the You Had Me at Black podcast platform. Through first-person testimonials, Natal will empower Black pregnant birthing parents with information and resources to navigate their parenthood journeys, hold medical systems accountable for the well-being of Black pregnant and birthing parents, create space for Black parents to share the lessons learned within a supportive community, and provide audiences with tools and language to amplify the national conversation about the state of Black perinatal care and the solutions that birth workers, advocates, and communities have long championed for. I'm excited to partner with Natal in this episode, and I know that you all will go over to You Had Me at Black, download, subscribe, rate, and review this new docuseries, as it's going to be coming out this week during Black Maternal Health Week and going on through their first season through July. So stay tuned weekly as you hear more stories about us, for us. Go over to You Had Me at Black, and remember, Natal Podcast.
Something else that you said that really stuck with me is that you had to get your mind and your body and your heart right. And culturally, even in the diaspora here in the States, a lot of African Americans and Blacks do the same practices. Like, we definitely, it's a culture thing where we go to church after, any trauma that we experience in our life. And it's so interesting that you said that, because it just wraps it all back around, because and then also here, which is very similar, they don't recognize the loss as a true loss like they do with an adult or any other small child. So it's still some stigma around that across the diaspora, really across the world, on what healing is. So I'm happy that you said that, because I think that'll help a lot of the listeners understand exactly how much we are so connected versus divided when it comes to loss, baby loss, going through this grief journey and this healing journey. So I would love for you to share any other tools and resources. You mentioned a support group earlier that you've used to help you on your healing journey.
Yeah, I think as I started talking to more women, I found a support group with about 15 women, varying ages and walks of life, and different, at different stages in life and different marital status. And that space became a place to run to when you don't understand certain things. And when you think, okay, maybe I'm being a bit crazy here, I need to, to touch base with people who can understand my journey and what I've been through. So that space became really good. It's still existing, and we're trying to multiply it, as I've also just plugged in and been working with those women. And I think it made me realize one thing, that like this, for us as a woman, in most social spaces, maybe not all of them, but most social spaces, you are addressed by your child's name. So for an example, if your son is John, literally they say mother of John. That's the literal translation from my language, mother of John. If they can address you as mother of John, the next default is to address you with your married surname. So you find that now, that support group made me realize that a lot of women went through that, and they're actually still going through it. Those who have not had their rainbow babies. Because, as I said earlier, the marriage setup is so hinged on, is there a child from the union of these two? It's hinged on that. And it's even at various levels, it's expected that you're married, then you should have a child, and we address you by your child's name. And in some settings, they'll still address you by your first name. So I think going through that journey and with all these women around me made me realize that, okay, this is not unique to me, and other women have been through it. So you learn practical skills on how to overcome, on how to say, okay, I'm going to this social setting. What's going to happen is one, two, three. How do I prepare before I get there? So you've got to prepare on a mental level and an emotional level and say, okay, before I get there, what should I expect? It might happen, it might not happen. But when it happens, I should be able to have a response. So more of scenario mapping, what would happen. So that has really helped me. And I think sometimes it might sound selfish, but needing to retreat into your own corner and to get you back, like I mentioned earlier, just to replenish yourself, to say, okay, this is what I'm going to do, just to get me back. So my biggest source of healing or source of support has been, all right, this happened, but I need to get myself back. After the whole change in an outlook of life, how do I get myself back? So you find that I kept searching online. Where do I get help? What do I do to get help? Now that I got it, it's more of saying, okay, how do I help other women? What can we do to help even expecting mothers who need help and have also faced various challenges? So I think all those tools put together, have helped me. So it doesn't be just one tool, but it's just been bits and pieces of a lot of tools and then combined, put in one box. So each has played a different role in my journey to healing.
Yes. How can I help others? That's such a great question to ask, because I feel like we we have to be able to get to a place where we can turn our pain into purpose in some manner. So share with us some of the other things and initiatives that you're doing to help women in your city and your country, Zimbabwe now.
Okay. Right now, it's still a bit small, but I'm hoping in the next month or 2 months I'll be able to blow it up a bit. But I am assisting women who are young and maybe and expecting, and they don't have enough preparation for the baby. When I say preparation, I mean their diapers, their clothing, and so on, just for the initial 3 months. For some, I'm assisting them with just the first month. So I've got partners who just, I say, okay, I just need one, two, three things. I've got 10 mothers, and this is how I intend to do it. Right now, it's still very small, but I think the more I do it, the more I see women who need help, primarily young women who are expecting they need help, and maybe their families are not supportive or their partners are not supportive. The more I realize that the healing it's giving me, I find it so therapeutic, just putting a smile on a young mother who did not know, how is she going to clothe the baby? How is she going to be able to just even bath the baby, small things like that. So this initiative has just been a start for me. I thought to myself, okay, what do I do? Because the pain is something that you can't easily just bury and hope that it will go away. Because it's going to explode at some point in your lifetime, and you wonder what was the trigger. Maybe it happened X number of years ago or months ago, but what triggered it? So I've made a conscious decision that I do not want to bury the pain. Instead, I want it out. That way I heal. And by changing lives, it even makes it easier that you can actually track to say, okay, I changed this life positively. So I can do it a bit more in a larger scale. And I guess there's my background being that I already work with girls. So I see them often who need help. But this has been close to my heart, primarily because I've experienced it, the loss of the baby. And now that the baby has come through, the more need to celebrate it, to shower it with blessings, and to make sure that they are well catered for, well assisted, and ready for life.
Yes, I love that. So, what encouraging words can you leave with the listeners, those who are continuing on their journey to motherhood, so that they don't give up hope?
Um, I think firstly is discover who you are and what you really want. Not to say that motherhood is not what you want, because it's not been successful that far, but I believe that it will happen at the God appointed time. That's the first thing. And secondly, is that just because we, both myself and the listeners, maybe who are listening or know that somebody who has lost a baby, does not make us any less of human or not make us any less of who we are. We're actually whole. We're actually wholesome individuals. So because we've got that with us, it will happen. And when it happens, it will be such a joyous moment. Yes, I do get that it's not every day that is a positive day where we've got that outlook. Because as I mentioned earlier, there are days when I also do feel a bit low. But however, it's just to stay positive, be joyous, seeing what lives you can also impact. For all you know, from that, you create a sense of, of being and just being relaxed. And before you know it, you actually be expecting. So I believe that it will happen because we believe it at the God appointed time. We just might not understand when and why it does not yet happen, but it will happen. All right. So I am available on email and I've got a website. So I'll avail it because it's a bit long. So I have to spell it out now. It might be a bit of a challenge, but I'll avail it maybe as a link for this interview. And I'm looking forward to connecting with women, with any women around the world who are listening to this particular podcast. And let's share some positive vibes amongst ourselves.
Thank you so much, Leone, for being on the Sisters in Laws podcast and taking this call so early for me, but late for you. So I'm so happy we connected.
I know it took quite a while to get here.
Yes, it did. But I'm so happy that we were able to make it happen. It's such a blessing. And I know that it'll be a blessing to everyone listening.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. And thank you for the early morning recording on your end.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. For show notes and more information on today's guest, go to sistersinloss.com. If you have not joined our online community, go to sistersinloss.com as well as sign up for our newsletter. We want you to be a part of the community so you can know all of the events that we have planned on as Sisters in Loss. Go to sistersinloss.com, sign up for our newsletter, join our online community, and stay connected with us. Talk to you soon.